Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to be here. It's kind of fun to talk about these things. So what I like to do is just go through a few questions that I think most of us have. And is robotics going too far? We already kind of crossed the limits. It's going to be good for us, bad for us? And what happens if the robots and what people call superhuman intelligence is going to take over the world? So those are kind of big questions, and I'm not going to go through all this list. The World Economic Forum in 2016 issued this list of kind of ethical issues of AI. They're kind of ranked in order of importance. I'm not going to read all of them. The first one, I think, is one everybody's concern, is unemployment. If robots, AI, and computers take over all the jobs, what are we going to do? Enjoy life? Maybe, but you know, there are a lot of things associated with getting jobs, not just the money. The last one I just mentioned quickly, robot rights. If we get the robots to kind of become part of our society, will they have rights? And what kind of rights? And how are we going to treat the robots nicely? Do we have to? So again, those are big issues that are out there. What I like to do, I'll go through a few videos. I mean, those are real robots that exist, just to give you a sense for some of the things that exist. This is kind of a very interesting project from Japan. This is a robot for elderly people. Let me see if the, okay. So again, you get an idea. This is an existing product. I mean, it's something anybody can buy. I think the cost used to be about $10,000. So I don't know if the price came down, but it's out there. There's one quick thing I want to do and kind of talk about artificial intelligence. And what I like to bring up here is a piece written by a philosopher, which instead of talking about what intelligence is, that we do all the time, it focuses on the word artificial. And in general, we don't think about. And what I kind of like, I mean, if you kind of read it through, says, well, there are two meanings for things that are artificial. And one is things that are fabricated, but they're not really the real thing, like artificial flowers. You know, they look like flowers. We know they're not flowers. But there are other things like light. And light is artificial, but does the job, illuminates. And so the question that he asks is, when we use the word artificial intelligence, which is the meaning of artificial that we think about? Is something really fake? Is not the real thing? It looks like, but it's not. Or is it really a new form of intelligence? And of course, it's an open question, there is no answer, but I kind of, again, like the kind of frame in these terms. It makes it a little bit easier to think about it, different ways we can think about artificial intelligence. Then, of course, because of the movie we have tonight, I'm focusing on androids, what I call androids. And let me see, this is a relatively old video, but I hope it will show. So she wasn't impressed. Now, the person that has developed all these robots, or the main developer, is Hiroshi Ishiguro, who's a professor in Japan. And he started building a copy of himself. So what you see here is himself and his copy, you know, both the face and both the body. And you know, you should take a look and figure out which is the real one and which is the fake one. But then he also went much farther. So the small daughter that was shown earlier was his daughter, 5 years old. So he built an android for the daughter. The person in the middle here is the wife. And here it shows a little bit the internal side. So they have a soft silicone skin, which is very soft, so it looks very human-like. But inside are all the motors and all the other things. And this is a relatively recent picture that two of those robots were used in a newscast to read the weather forecast. And Ishiguro is the person here, is another one. And you know, if you see the video, I'm not showing the video here. If you see the video, it's clear they are robots. I mean, that the movements are not completely smooth and so, but they're quite impressive. And this one down here is the latest robot that Ishiguro has developed. And again, she looks very, very human-like. So now, I'm a scientist, so I want to know how do they do this, right? I mean, I can just see pictures. So what this gives you an idea of how they're controlled right now. So that's the way they are controlled. So they are controlled from a human operator, which is tracked, the motion of the face, in particular the lips are tracked, and so the humanoid repeats. Now, quick things here, one of the reasons why the Japanese started working on this is they're really interested in seeing how people react to robots, and in particular robots that look like humans, which may at some point become, the robots of the future. And so there is one of the kind of known things in the robotics community and human interaction community is what is called the uncanny valley. And if you show something that is kind of look human-like, people tend to like it. But at some point, as you get more and more human-like, you see it's not a human. And so you really have this kind of big drop in your familiarity or interest. And again, they're really trying to study how this uncanny valley affects, and they're bringing in young children and other people interacting with those robots. Again, they're trying to see if people will accept this kind of robots. Now, there is kind of different approach that another group in Japan is taking. I'll show you a little piece of this one. Okay, I think I'll stop here, and there's more. The reason why I think this is interesting is one of the big questions is, would we prefer having a robot that looks like a human, and we don't know if it's a robot or a human, or a robot that looks kind of like a human but shows very clearly is a robot? Like again, in this case, the face is human face, but the body you see clear is a robot. And this is kind of interesting, big open question, right? Which one will we prefer? And now if you think about one of the recent things that happened with the Google Home devices, right? This Google Home device that speaks back to you, and there's been this experiments was done by Google in which a home device called a hairdresser to set up an appointment. And the big flack about this is not the fact they called. Technically it was a success, but it didn't say I'm a robot. And so the question now open is, when you pick up the phone, often we have those robocall, right? We're used to those. But now if I have a program that doesn't act as like a robocall, but really does something that feels more intelligent, will I need to know I'm talking with a program as opposed to a person? And again, this kind of brings up sort of this issue. Now, quick things, I have a couple more things, and then we can open question discussion. The question, one of the important questions is, can robots have emotions? And so when I'm writing here, I took kind of the, some of the theory of emotion, how people express emotions, and there are kind of different theories that are not completely independent of each other. I can say the cognitive theory. So, emotions are related to the goals of the person, and that part is not too difficult to do with computers, because once I know what the goals are, then I can have a robot that shows smiles or whatever, sadness. Human emotion depends on physiology, and it's going to be very, very hard to replicate, and nobody, as far as I know, is planning on doing with robots. And the last part is social construction. So the question, again, a lot of emotions depend on the social environment. And so the culture and social environment is important. And this first brings up a question: can we build a robot in which emotions are simulated? So do I need a robot really to feel emotions, or can I just show emotions, right? And depends again, do we think that artificial intelligence is going to be a real form of intelligence, so it could really show emotion, or just kind of a fake form of intelligence? We can fake a lot of things. So that's kind of an open question. Of course, people think in different ways. And there's still, I want just to always, when we kind of see, oh my goodness, the world is going to be conquered by those robots, I always want to push a break. So this is an example that was given by a famous AI researcher at the AI conference 2 years ago. Let me just get quickly the story, and hopefully you get the punchline here. So in the not very far future, we'll have robots at home, taking care of kids, cooking, doing everything. And one night, I have to stay work late. So I called a robot and say, prepare the dinner for my kids. The robot said, yes, I will do. Goes, open the fridge, and the fridge is empty. So what is the robot going to do? Okay? We all kind of understand, right? An important part here is why we say the pet is not going to be food. Well, it's part of cultural norms, right? That we all understand. And in fact, not every culture has the same things with respect to cats or so. But anyway, the reason why this, I think, is an important example is because it shows, there are so many things we know, we absorbed, as we grow up, we learned. And if you want a robot that really acts intelligent, you will have to learn a lot of stuff. So I don't know if it's going to be able to learn it or not. I think this, again, is kind of like example that I like. Now, just to finish here, to me, there is kind of an important issue that is a major reason I think people should think about. The issue is not if the car or a robot, autonomous car is going to take over things, or a program can have ethical values, make the right decision, not make the right decisions. The important thing is we as members of society, we need somehow to take control of how those decisions are made. Because it's not just one ethical way of doing things. And the most example people talk about in this case is autonomous cars. Does the car decide to kill the owner of the car or kill a kid that's crossing the street? And those decisions are decisions we make as people, individually, using our own values. And when we're going to have machines doing those, who is going to decide how those decisions are going to be made? And this is a big, big open problem. Part of the scientific society, people are looking into things. People are looking into, bias, avoid bias in algorithms, how to make ethical decisions and so on. But I think it's really a problem for all of us at large, because if we don't do anything, somebody will figure out what to do, and we find solutions that we don't like, and there's not much that we can do. So, thank you. Any questions or anything anybody wants to, bring up or ask? I'll be happy to answer as much as I can. Sure.
How are we doing on recognizing emotions? Do robots recognize emotions well yet?
Well, so programs can recognize faces, right? We know about faces very well, except for some problems that still happens. But face recognition is very, very successful, and most of the emotions are expressed to the face. So it's not too difficult. The next step would be to recognize, if the face is smiling or not. Other kind of emotions may be expressed by language. We're not yet there. This ability to understand spoken language and to figure out the context, but understanding even from maybe the tone of voice, the emotion, as far as I know, hasn't been done yet. I don't think it's going to be too difficult. So the recognition, in some sense, we as humans don't always recognize emotions properly, right? Depends really on the face of the person, how the person interacts, the voice, and so. So those things I don't think are too difficult. Thank you. Yeah.
How do AI people decide what problem to work on? Why do you want somebody who looks like a human? Why is that a problem you choose to work on? Why not something totally different?
Well, most of this work has been done in Japan. Now, the Japanese society compared to, for instance, the American society, first they have, there are a lot of things. I don't want to simplify life, just stereotypes. They don't really like to have foreign people coming and helping people staying at home. So really try to be autonomous and independent. So they've been developing robotics since very, very early ages, just to make sure that at some point there are robots or technology that can help people instead of having people helping people. And so the idea of doing this kind of robots that look like humans is because, at some point it will be possible to do. In some sense, I'm always impressed when I see these videos. The motions don't look very good, but they focus mostly on the face, the motion and muscles of the face. But it's possible. It's not impossible to build a robot that looks kind of like a human, has a nice skin and everything. And the question is, do we want to do it or not? So that's still the open question. In some sense, I think they are thinking, well, if a robot looks like a human, it will be more accepted. I'm not sure if it's true or not. And they're kind of trying to study that. So, yeah.
So robots are programmed, right, by algorithms. Can you write an algorithm that allows a robot to write an algorithm?
Sure, yes. You can. Sure. Yeah, of course it depends. You can do it, depends how complex can algorithms be, right? If the algorithm is to be developed completely, but there is kind of one trend of going from kind of low-level programming, in which every step is to be described, to higher-level languages. And if you think in that sense, if I could have a programming system and I give kind of high-level description of the steps, and then the programming generates the code, that's maybe it's not exactly inventing the algorithm, but it's getting closer, right, to acting like a person would do. So that's not impossible. I don't know. There's not too much work done because people are still trying to see, well, how can we write programs? How can we better ways of writing programs, developing programs? So there's a lot of work on developing different programming languages, different ways of interactions, and then of course the big area of work in AI is what's called deep learning, which is can we learn, right? And so face recognition, for instance, is a solved problem because you can have billions of images of people and you can learn from those images. And a lot of, again, image recognition is done through deep learning. Work is getting started now on understanding language. So instead of having to, think about the grammar of the language and exactly how the sentences are formed, learn by going through millions and millions of conversations. Whether it's going to succeed, I think we'll succeed. It's not succeeded yet, but I think we'll do. There's nothing fundamentally says impossible to do it. So that may be a slightly different way in a sense. Again, you don't even need to program an algorithm. Like what you built is a system that can learn.
Way in the back.
I assume there's been a lot of work in intelligence. What about consciousness? How are we progressing towards understanding consciousness? And in your work, do robots need to be conscious?
That's a big open question, what consciousness is, and do robots need consciousness? Some people say yes, some people say only human beings can have consciousness. I mean, there are a lot of different theories. For the work the robots are doing today, they don't need consciousness. They don't need much. They don't need to recognize emotions. And most they need to see, well, I'm close to a person, I should just slow down. Right? They don't need much. Because the robots today are not that capable. They're not doing a lot of things outside of factories or controlled environments. Once you start bringing robots like in houses, which is going to be very, very difficult, then things get harder, but still more. The difficult part is how to move. If there are steps in a house, make sure the robot doesn't roll down the steps, right? It doesn't bump into walls, recognizes the people, answer the questions. So those are still difficult problems. Each individual is solved, but putting all the system together in a way that works reliably, 24/7, is still very far away. Consciousness, I think, will be much farther down the line. But a lot of people are talking about that. There's no clear answer because, again, first you have to decide what it is consciousness and can we build it or not. There are a lot of philosophers. I mean, there's a lot of talks from philosophers that are either in favor or against. It's possible, it's impossible. I'm not sure.